I need y'all to pay attention to this one. This is something every parent, new and old, should know. No one told Jessica and I, and we weren't prepared for what was the scariest night of our lives. Let's talk about febrile seizures in babies. I'd like to start by saying I'm not a medical professional and you should take nothing from what I say as medical advice. A febrile seizure is defined as a seizure as a result of high body temperature, but without any other serious underlying issues. This affects 2 to 10% of children from the ages of 6 months to 5 years old. This is the most important video I've made to date. Jessica and I were not prepared for what occurred, and in addition to the trauma that Henry experienced through this, we now have our own, and that results from a lack of information. This is what happened. It's September 2021. It's the height of the Delta variant of COVID. I tested positive a few days after Jessica, and the afternoon of the day I tested, Henry started spiking a fever. By the time we noticed him eating different or acting lethargic, his temperature was already 101 degrees. In the next hour, after Tylenol, a cool rag on his head, and some rest, his temperature was up to 103.7 degrees. It came on so fast, it was like a blur. You see, when your child has a low fever, it's concerning, but with a little medicine and rest, usually it goes away. When it reaches these dangerous levels, inevitably you start thinking about the worst case scenario. It's unfortunate, but that's the reality of being a parent. The first time Henry started seizing from the temperature, he was on his changing table. We were getting ready to go to the doctor's office anyways to get him checked out. Jessica and I felt like we were on a runaway train that was going faster and faster with no end in sight. The feeling of having no control over the next 30 minutes of your kid's life was unbearable. We're in the car rushing to the hospital as fast as we could go, and in my mind, if I didn't get him there as quickly as I could, I was gonna lose my son. I remember telling Jessica, no matter what happens, I love you and we're gonna make it through it. This was our first experience ever witnessing a seizure, as is the case with most parents, I think. So because of that, the most important detail I think I want y'all to take away from this is while all this was happening, Henry was in Jessica's arms on his stomach. And this is where Grey's Anatomy came in handy. I remember one episode, they turned the patient on his side because he was seizing. This is done so they won't choke on their vomit, which is very common during seizures, which Henry did a lot. If he was on his back or in his car seat, in the back seat, and he threw up while seizing, I don't know what would have happened. We made it to the emergency room in record time. We rushed him to the back with the nurses and they did their thing. They were able to cool him down quickly, and within a few hours, he was down to 100 degrees or so, and we were able to leave. As you can imagine, this is a pretty tough story to retell. That's some PTSD that I don't want to have to relive again, but it's important for you to know. And in the least selfish way possible, if that story woke you up to some possibilities that you didn't know about that could happen to your kid, consider subscribing to the channel, like the video, and leave a comment on maybe your experience or something that stood out to you. This isn't for me, this is so YouTube will show the video to more people. That's my goal, is to get this word out because we didn't know about it. And if we did, maybe it wouldn't have been so traumatic. Doubtful. So another point that I wanted to get across from telling this story was being calm in a crisis can save a life. Panicking and freaking out does not help anyone. And I've said this many times in my videos. Think about what needs to happen and then act. Also, sidebar, if you feel that calling 911 and getting the ambulance there is going to take too long for your comfort, get in the car and go. Get them help from a professional as fast as you can. If that's what you need to do to protect your kid, unapologetically do it. I remember seeing that from the movie John Q, and I just felt like we needed to take control of the situation and get him there quickly. Before we go any further in the video, in the next segment, we're going to be doing an epilepsy walk. It's a 5K fundraiser. This is to support a branch of our family that has dealt with epilepsy. And disclaimer, Henry does not have epilepsy. And in regard to the febrile seizures, only 2 to 4% of kids that have them go on to develop epilepsy. I'm not even sure if that's worth mentioning. It's such a little number, but it's just something that you should think about. So if you're still here, stick around for some Charleston street views and watch a woman that's 39 weeks pregnant walk a 5K. So we're at the walk along the Battery in Charleston Harbor. We're gonna do a 5K, 3.1 miles. Every year the Epilepsy Foundation gets together and puts on a fundraiser and walk events in like DC and LA. But we're not near those, so we're gonna do our own today. Jessica walks 2.5 miles a day, so this is no big deal, but mile 1, how you feeling?
Hot.
Hot. It's humid. It's humid today. Mile 2. Quick stop off at Waterfront Park. Quick halfway point note. I've seen more wieners on that 1.5 mile walk than I ever have in my life. Our walk got interrupted briefly by this gentleman laying on the grass out at Waterfront Park. His whole ass out. Like, nasty. Kids running around, everything. Had to call the authorities on that one, get it cleaned up. I mean, sun's out, buns out, I get it, but at least have an nice ass. Yikes. All right, we're at 2 miles. Pace is pretty good. Jessica's out here 9 months pregnant and 100% humidity. .1 miles, 5K. Good job. I'm proud of you. 70 minutes, 9 months pregnant. That's something to say.
39 weeks pregnant.
39 weeks, almost 10 months. One last thing. 5K was a success. We had a great walk. The next time you see me, I'll be a father. Of 2.
This is Fox 5 Local News at 10.
Thousands of people gathered on the National Mall this morning for a good cause. They joined together for this year's National Walk for Epilepsy. Epilepsy is a neurological condition that affects about 3 million people nationwide. Today marked the 10th year for the walk. Since 2006, the Epilepsy Foundation has raised nearly $10 million to help people living with epilepsy and provide research dollars to help find a cure.